Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective, going to 5,000 subscribers by September 7th, Texas LSU, can't wait, got the horns up today, want to talk some draft, where'd our guys end up, how did we do, how was our talent evaluated when it came to the 3 days last week, gonna dive into all that. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel. If you like the content, share it with your friends, share it with Longhorn Nation. I would be very blessed and honored. Make sure also all social media links will be in the description box below. Speaking of Longhorn Nation, also want to shout out my brothers over at Texas Platinum, Matt Myers, Matt Madrid, as well as Thomas Vargas, their producer. They're doing some great job as well on Twitter. So go to their channel, check them out on Twitter as well, Texas Platinum. Those guys are doing some big things over there. Some UT students that I'm really, really proud of growing their platform as well. So guys, I mean, you know, we had 2 players drafted. Charles Omenihu, Kris, shout out to those guys. Later round, 5th and 7th round, going to the Houston Texans and Minnesota Vikings respectively. I really want to dive into not only where they ended up, but also our undrafted guys and, you know, just kind of breaking down each person's situation, odds of them making a 53-man or even a practice squad. You know, because, you know, it's still important for our program and all of us to see their journey, to see these guys move on at the next level for them, for their contributions to the program, for them helping us turn around and get that Sugar Bowl victory, getting back on the platform of the Big 12 championship game, but also for recruiting purposes. It looks good when guys go to the league and do well. So, you know, first off, big conversation. You know, a lot of people were disappointed how Texas fared in the draft, only having 2 players drafted, especially coming off of a 10-win season and winning a New Year's Six bowl. But, you know, we do have a lot of our higher end rated talent per se that is still on the roster. We do have some guys who are even being looked at, like a Colin Johnson next year, who, you know, staying healthy and productivity stays the same and increases, should be higher round picks. But, you know, have we overrated the talent on our roster the last few years? You know, we haven't had a first round pick in a while. I think the last one was probably Malcolm Brown, you know, I think in 2014 or so. Correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't even look that up before the video started, but I think it was Malcolm Brown at defensive tackle. But I mean, Texas has, you know, we've struggled, you know, on the higher end side with the draft. And I think if you're recruiting against Texas, if you're Oklahoma or, you know, anybody else in the state of Texas A&M, Big 12, what have you, you know, that's kind of the thing you're using as a tool to recruit against Texas. Hey, they're not turning guys into first round picks, second round picks. Now, I think that is coming, and I think we all agree with that. And there's several guys we can point to on this roster who, God willing, that's their path. But with all that being said, you know, we did have some high hopes from some of these guys that ended up not panning out from a draft perspective, you know, how we'd liked. I personally thought, you know, starting off just with going on the list, I thought Gary Johnson was going to be a guy that would have got drafted. I thought he obviously had a terrific combine performance, not just with the 40. We knew what he could do there, but also showing off his athleticism in the drills and how he played. I thought he had some good tape, especially towards the end of the season with the Georgia tape and whatnot. So that was, of all the guys, that was a bit surprising. I thought little Jordan Humphrey had a chance to get drafted, but obviously after the testing and just, you know, really, really struggling combine pro day wise with the numbers, you know, I can see in the amount of wide receivers that were taken, I could see why he went undrafted. But Gary Johnson was kind of the big surprise for me. However, I want to start with the 2 guys that got drafted, because I think both of those guys ended up in terrific situations. Starting with Charles Omenihu, 5th round pick, Houston Texans, going to a 3-4 defense, getting to play with a J.J. Watt and a Jadeveon Clowney, going into a similar scheme, you know, 3-down lineman, and he's going to be an outside defensive end in that scheme, be able to play the run, as well as have some pass rush ability, whether it's 3-man front or when they have, you know, roll their stunts out with some blitzes. I think the ability for him to learn, especially just pass rush maneuvers and just how to be a professional from a guy like a J.J. Watt, being in the room is huge for Charles Omenihu. I think staying in Texas, and, you know, he has a legitimate gripe as to why he should have why he wasn't a second or third round pick, especially the way, again, how he played in the bowl game and had a terrific senior year, Big 12 defensive lineman of the year, following Poona Ford's efforts, who wasn't drafted and then turned that energy into a productive rookie year with the Seattle Seahawks. I look to see the same thing from Charles Omenihu. I don't think he'll have a huge role on the Houston Texans just because, what they have up front. But I think as the season goes on, he develops as a rookie and really learns. I think, it's going to be a big help. Romeo Cornell and some of the guys they have there. It's going to be huge for Charles Omenihu's development. And knowing the kid, he's a good kid and he's a smart kid. And I think being in that environment is really, really going to be beneficial for Charles. And I look for him to have a good career. I really, really do. In going into the environment, you guys, before, when I did my pre-draft stuff, whether it was for the Cowboys or whatever I did, I always put, whether it's draft or undrafted, to me, it's more about the situation. And again, putting more onus and responsibility on the people running these programs, the coaches, the GMs, and what is their plan for these players. I really believe that if a player comes to the table and brings the work ethic, brings the study habits, brings the want to, and combines that with the physical gifts that they already bring, then the rest of it is really on the coaches and the situation and the environment and the scheme that they're placed in, whether they're successful or not. So I think Charles Omenihu covers those basics. That should be brought to the table, and we'll see what happens with him. Moving on to Kris Boyd. Obviously, he's going to go to the Minnesota Vikings with Holton Hill, who's already there. Holton Hill, who had a pretty good rookie year. Unfortunately, he went down with the PEDs or whatever. He got, not PEDs, but he tested positive for something, and he's going to, I think, miss 4 games. But Mike Zimmer is the perfect coach for Kris Boyd. I think he's going to help refine his technique. If there was one coach I would have said that would have taken a shot with Kris Boyd, just personality-wise, Mike Zimmer is definitely the guy. And I think Kris Boyd is another guy who has a gripe. He was best player available, especially if you were watching the draft on ESPN for a while there and slid. And some of that is just his tape, I think, because workout-wise, Kris Boyd has the measurables. Size-wise, he has what you want from a corner. Even if you wanted to move him over to safety, I think Mike Zimmer's shown that he can move guys around in his defense. He's moved corners to safeties to nickel. And I think Kris Boyd, just with his want to, is going to, be productive for that team. I have no doubt about that going to Minnesota. I would have been worried for him going to another situation, but being with Mike Zimmer, I think that's a big, big plus for Kris Boyd. And that's going to be a recurring theme with a lot of our Longhorn players, man. A lot of these guys ended up in good programs for their skill set and for what they bring to the table. Just going back to Kris Boyd, if Mike Zimmer, I think his ability to play special teams, covering kicks, being a gunner, that was something that impressed me with Kris Boyd his freshman and sophomore year, playing specials heavy. And he played specials throughout his time at Texas. But, when, starting off his first game at Texas at Notre Dame, he blew somebody up on punt. I think that's how that can be his calling card as a member of the Minnesota Vikings and just really developing as a player. So Kris Boyd, really happy that he ended up in that situation with Mike Zimmer. Moving on to some of the guys, the Patriots got 2 of our guys. We'll talk about Calvin Anderson as well as Andrew Beck. Calvin Anderson, I always say thank you for his service because of just what he did at left tackle to buy us some time in between Connor Williams, now moving on to Samuel Cosmi. It was huge. So the professional that he is coming in over the summer, and he's a smart kid, Rice graduate, picked up the playbook very quickly. In Maryland game, he was ready to roll all the way through the season. Never worried about that position. Played with good technique. Wasn't penalized too often. And that goes right into the wheelhouse of the New England Patriots. They're going to have to work on his body. He's going to have to get bigger. He's going to have to get stronger. But I will not count out Calvin Anderson. I think he has a chance to at least be a practice squad guy. And I think the coaches, especially with their storied offensive line coach, great. That's the best offensive line coach and situation he could have ended up in. So really glad that he was able to sign on with them and that they went after him. Andrew Beck is in a good situation as well. Obviously, Rob Gronkowski's retirement. believe they just traded Jacob Hollister, who was another tight end they had. So they're really light at that position. I don't know if they brought back Dwayne Allen. Somebody can correct me in the comments there. But Andrew Beck just coming in and having a chance to compete just from the position group that he's in is awesome. His abilities as a blocker, the speed that he showed the pro day, I think that's all those traits are going to help him. Being a captain, being a leader in the locker room is something that's going to help him really ingratiate himself within the New England organization. And the fact that he can play H-back. New England's one of the few teams that still utilizes a fullback. You see some of the things they get to do with a James Devlin. Andrew Beck having that position versatility to be able to play multiple positions as well as special teams. I can see him being another guy running down, covering kicks. He's just a football player. And football players guys, and when I say football players, I'm talking about just well-rounded, doing whatever the coach asks them to do, being coachable and being physical. That's something that Andrew Beck is going to be perfect, typical New England Patriot. Not surprised that's the situation he ended up in. Really, really excited for him. Moving on to the Saints, because they took two of our guys too. They took Lil Jordan Humphrey as well as Elijah Rodriguez. Lil Jordan Humphrey, a lot of people, and I still see people on Twitter, talking about, hey, you shouldn't have left and all this type of stuff. Look, that ship has sailed, whether you like it or not. I have also seen the discussion about whether guys should be allowed to come back to school if they have a bad combine or evaluation. That's really tricky because if you sign with an agent, it's a little different. But if they could have something kind of similar to what the NBA draft does, where they kind of allow you to go to the NBA combine, get tested, and you can come back if you want to, similar to what Andrew Jones and Curran Roach did. We'll see if that's something down the line. But for Lil Jordan Humphrey, I just want to say this about him. I think he truly believed that he made the right call in his mind, and that still remains to be seen. He's first off, he's ended up in a terrific situation, perfect for him, with the New Orleans Saints, utilizing the big slot receiver position. They're one of the few teams in the NFL that's done it. They've done that since Marquise Colston. And they have the quarterback in Drew Brees that executes that very well. And Sean Payton is the creative guy who really doesn't. He's one of these guys that has positionless football. You look what he does with Taysom Hill. You look what he does with Alvin Kamara. Look what he does with Michael Thomas, and moving these guys around. They're like chess pieces. And Lil Jordan Humphrey can do a little bit of what all those guys can do, even in the backfield. The Saints, they don't care. They do wildcat stuff. They, all sorts of stuff that, Tom Herman talking about Lil Jordan Humphrey as a Swiss Army knife. It's a great fit for him. But going back to my original point with Lil Jordan Humphrey is he's a confident player, and he's always been great at football his whole life. And so when he got the 3rd to 6th round, whatever grade, or advised to come back to school, the reason why he's so successful is because he doesn't think like that. He didn't think of himself as a 3rd or 6th round pick. I understand, brothers got to humble themselves and listen to advice and whatnot, and that's valid. But he's a guy that's always, fight against the odds, and I'm gonna do the best I can because I believe in myself. He wasn't one of the most highly touted recruits when he got to Texas. There were other guys in his class that we expected more from, but he rose to the crop. At the end of the day, he rose to the crop and was our most consistent offensive player last year outside of Sam Ehlinger. So when you go back to where he's ended up and not being drafted and all that, I'm telling you, preseason rolls around week 3 and you see the dude out there breaking tackles. People are like, who is that on New Orleans? And did they get another gem? Don't be surprised when you see Lil Jordan Humphrey out there. He's going to make that football team. I believe in that young man. And I think that is, if there was one situation I would have wanted him to end up in, it was with New Orleans because of how they utilize that big slot. That is perfect for him. And being able to learn from a technician like a Michael Thomas. I know he doesn't have all the skill sets to play outside like Michael does, but a lot of the things they do creatively between him and Taysom Hill, Lil Jordan Humphrey can add to the mix and do those things and help them, as well as play special teams. He's another guy that was running down, covering kicks, doing whatever he's got to do. I'll never forget that dude on the Jets that was a special teams coach during Hard Knocks talking about your ticket to this team is special teams, and that's huge for guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey, Kris Boyd, Andrew Beck, all the people we mentioned. Elijah Rodriguez, one of the things that's good with him, position versatility, played a lot of different positions, was a captain this year. You know he's going to go in there, be a professional. One of the things I love about the Saints is how they develop their offensive linemen. They drafted some guys on the offensive line as well, so there's going to be a lot of competition for him. I'm not saying he's going to make the team or the practice squad, but I do believe for him personally, that is a good fit for Elijah Rodriguez. Breckyn Hager went to the Giants. For those of you who don't know, the Giants will be moving to a 3-4 defense this year, and being able to play that outside defensive end and not having to play down on the line like he did at Texas is an advantage for Breckyn Hager. If he can go in there and his pass rushing ability is relentlessness. Being able to just be a hoss and get under, be annoying, and he does have a little bit of speed and quickness. And so if he can get a little bit stronger as well, marry that power and develop some pass rush moves, he's got a chance as well. He's another guy, special teamer that's willing to hit. We know how physical Breckyn is, and he's going to give it everything he's got with the New York Giants. So with the switch of the defense and him having to play outside, not having his hand in the dirt, I think that's a great spot for Breckyn. Steelers took Kris Nelson and PJ Locke III. So good spot for those guys. And we'll wrap up with Patrick Vahe going to the Ravens and Davante Davis going to the Seahawks, I believe. So PJ Locke, that's going to be a tough competition for him. The Steelers are really, really trying to upgrade the secondary. Special teams, again, name of the game for all these guys. PJ's going to have to refine his technique as well. And I hope that they move him more to safety. I think he has a better chance of being, more of an in-the-box, strong safety. I think he would have a chance to surprise in camp. Because he's going to blow up some people and improve his physicality. And that's the common recurring thing with all these guys. And even Gary Johnson, Anthony Wheeler going to the Chiefs, their physicality. So, great opportunity for them. Kris Nelson definitely has a better chance to make the Steelers. But, and going, again, staying in the same type of defense he played in at Texas. All these guys going to great spots. Going to the Chiefs, I think Gary Johnson's going to make the roster. I think the Chiefs got one of the biggest steals of all of our guys. Right now I have Lil Jordan making it, and I have Gary Johnson making that roster. I think he's going to be one of the breakout stars in the preseason. Speed on special teams and his ability to blitz defensively. I think one of the things that I noticed in the Kansas City playoff game was the lack of speed at linebacker at certain spots, and even blitzing. I think Reggie Ragland's a good player, as well as the brother that came over, what's his name? The brother that came over from Dallas, that was our linebacker. I'm drawing a blank. From Purdue. Y'all chime in there. But those guys, as good as they are, he does bring an element from a physical component that they don't have. And so that's going to be huge for Gary Johnson. What can you do to set yourself apart? And really stand out in the coach's mind? That's going to be huge for Gary. Anthony Wheeler is going to be an uphill battle for him because he fits more of a mold of a thumper and whatnot. But there's always a place for guys like that. Again, showing some leadership in college, will be huge for him. Davante Davis going to Seattle, where they, traditionally like the bigger corners. Davante's got to get stronger, and he's got to play up to his size. If he does that, he has a chance because he can turn and run with guys. And he's got really good ball skills. He's got a knack for knocking the ball loose on the perimeter, but he's got to play up to his size and get stronger out there. I'm wishing him the best of luck in Seattle, especially being up there with Puna and Michael Dixon as well. So, best of luck to him as well. And then Patrick Vahe going to Baltimore. He, being in the run-heavy offense with Lamar Jackson, the writing's been on the wall for Baltimore, where they're going with their free agent signings and whatnot. That's a great situation for Patrick. It's got to improve his pass blocking ability and moving his feet better. That was his biggest knock on him throughout his Texas career. But he's got the natural strength, and he can maul with anybody. So if he can bring that nastiness and maul, he's got a great shot to surprise some people in that organization. But the thing across the board, I don't see anybody that ended up in a weak organization or a place where I'm like, I don't like that fit for them schematically or coaching wise. And I have to give some credit to the Texas staff. I think they've also been beneficial in helping some of these guys and kind of angling them to where they need to go. But, as a Texas fan, I'm looking forward to some of our guys getting drafted these next couple years. I think that's going to be the fruit of their labor and then bring us truly being back as a program 360, not just the wins, but also the recruiting accolades as well as the draft accolades and getting guys paid and getting guys onto the next level. And it's a badge of honor, for these teams because that goes into the ammunition on the front end of recruiting. So, guys, please chime in if there's anybody I missed or if there's an evaluation you disagree on or, you just want to add furthermore to what I covered. But I think I got pretty much everybody I wanted to talk about. I'm really, really excited for our guys and can't wait, to see how guys, progress in camp. Really excited. I think LJ Humphrey, Gary Johnson, those two in particular, I think will make 53-man rosters. And I don't count on Andrew Beck as well just because of the position group he's in with the New England Patriots. So really, really excited. Really excited. My hands are shaking. I'm so excited. Horns always up. Over and out.